All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the second meeting for the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development. Secretary, would please call the roll.
Senator Cruz Crawford.
Present.
Senator Donyate.
Here.
Senator Steinbeck.
Here.
Senator Stone.
Here.
Chair Neal.
Here. All right, so all members are present. I would like to welcome the audience here in Carson City and in Las Vegas, as well as those watching and listening over the internet. If you have not done so already, please mute your electronic devices. Today we will hear two presentations. The Department of Taxation will provide us an overview of its work, and the second presentation will be a demonstration of my Nevada tax, also by the Department of Taxation. Do you want to do the presentation first before you get in, and then we ask you questions? Is it a video?
It's actually, we have the staff here to demonstrate it.
Are they going to act it out?
So,
Like what's happening? I'm sorry.
yeah.
All right, so we'll go back to the original agenda and do the presentation first. And can I make a request though? Can we just go like jump right into tax types and skip mission and
Sure.
yeah.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Shelley Hughes, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation. I have with me various members of the department's executive team that will be presenting with me today. We will be giving an overview of taxation. While our PowerPoint is 91 pages, I want to assure you that we will move through it quickly and we will be brief. We will leave time at the end of our presentation for any questions you may have. And at the request of the chair, we'll just skip right on. And we'll start with slide 9. Okay, so the department oversees the administration of various tax types and fees. The next 5 slides provide information on these tax types and fees. Your fiscal staff went through these tax types on Tuesday, so I will go through these pages briefly. You will also have a copy of our presentation so you can review them in more detail in the future. So the slide in front of you now provides components of the sales tax, the NRS chapter which governs the tax, the rate of the tax type, and how the tax is distributed. The left side of this next slide contains a map of the various counties and the county sales and use tax rate. On the right side of this slide, you'll see county option taxes, which is one of the components of the sales tax. This slide provides information for the modified business tax for both financial institutions and mining and general business, the bank excise tax, the commerce tax, the exhibition facility fee, the live entertainment tax, the insurance premium tax, and the lodging tax. This next slide provides information for the cigarette tax, other tobacco products tax, which is often referred to as OTP, the premium cigar tax, cigarette and OTP licensing fees, the liquor tax, liquor licensing fees, and liquor fines. This slide provides information for the short-term car lease fee, the peer-to-peer car sharing fee, the retail and wholesale cannabis tax, the transportation connection tax, the tire fee, the real property transfer tax, the gold and silver excise tax, and the net proceeds of minerals. The next few slides provide fiscal year 2024 revenue and distributions. This slide demonstrates the revenue received in fiscal year 2024 for each tax type administered by the department. As you can see from this chart, of the approximate $10.3 billion in revenue collected during fiscal year 24, sales and use tax collections make up approximately $7.3 billion, or 70% of the approximate $10.3 billion collected. This slide also demonstrates the distributions for fiscal year 24. The State General Fund receives 40.4% of total distributions, or approximately $4.2 billion. And local governments receive 32.7, or approximately $3.4 billion, and the State Education Fund receives 26.3%, or approximately $2.7 billion. This slide compares the gross revenue and distributions by tax types for fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24. There is a column that provides whether the revenue increased or decreased and the percentage of change. The department also distributes to municipalities for STAR bonds. NRS 271A provides the means for municipalities to create tourism improvement districts. A tourism improvement district, or TID, is a special district with specific boundaries which is created by an ordinance. It is similar to a redevelopment district in that it is wholly contained within a county or municipality. Currently, there are 7 TIDs. Out of the 7 TIDs, there are 4 located in Washoe County, formed by the city of Reno and the city of Sparks, and the remaining 3 TIDs are in Clark County, formed by city of Las Vegas. STAR bonds stand for Sales Tax Anticipated Revenue Bonds. The taxable sales generated in these districts may be pledged towards the payment of STAR bonds issued by the municipality to finance projects in the district. The department currently distributes to municipalities located within the 7 TIDs for STAR bonds, in which the pledged tax is 75% of the tax generated in the TID for a maximum of 20 years. Pursuant to NRS 360.137, the department is required to produce a tax expenditure report every biennium. The purpose of this report is to provide information that will allow the public and policymakers to identify and analyze tax expenditures and to periodically make criteria-based decisions on the efficiency and fairness of tax expenditures and whether they should be continued. A tax expenditure includes tax abatements, tax credits, tax deductions, tax deferrals, tax exemptions, tax exclusions, tax subtractions, and preferential tax rates. This report contains details of each tax expenditure enacted, who benefits, and the estimated fiscal impact of the tax expenditure to the state. The most recent expenditure report was released in November of 2024. I will now turn the presentation over to Chief Deputy Navarez Goodson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Yvonne Navarez Goodson, Chief Deputy Executive Director for the department. Last name spelled Nevarez-Goodson. I'll take us through the next few slides introducing the various boards and commissions under the department's purview. First, the Nevada Tax Commission serves as the head of the Department of Taxation. It is composed of 8 members appointed by the governor. The governor also serves as an ex officio non-voting member. The Tax Commission may review, affirm, modify, or reverse any decision of the department. The commission and the department work cohesively on all issues related to tax regulation and administration in the state, yet each maintains a distinct role in contested matters involving taxpayers. The State Board of Equalization is a 5-member body appointed by the governor for the statutory purposes of equalizing property valuations in the state. The State Board of Equalization's immense responsibilities over the state's property valuations is often overlooked. The board is responsible for considering appeals of actions from county boards of equalization, direct appeals of property valuations of the Nevada Tax Commission for centrally assessed properties, and appeals of property appraisals and valuations related to property and equipment involving mining for net proceeds of minerals. The board's hearings often involve complex property appraisal issues with significant financial consequences. The Committee on Local Government Finance is an 11-member body appointed by various local government and state organizations. It surprises many to know that Nevada has more than 260 local government entities, including cities, counties, and general and special improvement districts. The committee advises the department with respect to compliance of local government entities with the Local Government Budget Act set forth in NRS Chapter 354. Notably, this committee is supported by the department's Local Government Finance section, which reviews local government budgets and audits, prepares ad valorem tax rates for certification by the Tax Commission, prepares revenue projections for local governments, and advises local governments on the compliance with the Local Government Budget Act. The Appraiser Certification Board is composed of 6 members who must be qualified government appraisers. Government appraisers should not be confused with real estate appraisers. The certified appraisers of this board are those that are certified as government appraisers for the taxation of property by the state and any political subdivision. The board advises the department on matters pertaining to such certification and approves continuing education courses for appraisers. The Mining Oversight and Accountability Commission is composed of 7 members, also appointed by the governor. The role of this body is limited to providing a public forum for discussion of matters undertaken by various state agencies with duties related to mining, including functions related to the taxation, operations, safety, and environmental regulation of mines and mining in Nevada. Membership has remained a constant challenge for this particular body. The department is monitoring Senate Bill 78 this session, which changes the department's oversight and support of some of the boards and commissions just described. The bill creates the Office of Nevada Boards, Commissions, and Councils Standards within the Department of Business and Industry. The goal of this legislation is to provide centralized administrative, legal, technology, and other support services to various executive boards in the state. Under this legislation, the Mining Oversight and Accountability Commission would be abolished, and the Appraiser Certification Board and the Committee on Local Government Finance would move under the purview of this new centralized office. However, with regard to the Committee on Local Government Finance, the bill expressly contemplates that the department will continue to provide support to that committee, presumably due to the department's Local Government Finance section, which gives the expertise over local government finances. I'd like to turn the matter over to my colleagues to discuss further functions of the department, and I'll return towards the end of the presentation to give an overview of the department's licensing and investigation work in relation to tobacco and liquor, as well as some highlights of the legal functions of the department.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Adrienne Roberts Larson. Last name is Roberts-Larson. I am the Deputy Director of Administrative Services for the department. Administrative Services is responsible for the centralized support of all administrative, financial, and fiscal activities of the department. Sections include budget, fiscal, tax distributions and statistics, demography, revenue accounting and processing, document management, support services, and mailroom. Included under the Administrative Services Division are the positions of Administrative Services Officer 4, or ASO 4, State Demographer, Economist, and Internal Auditor. Bonnie Long is the ASO 4, and she supervises the Fiscal Services section of the department. This section oversees payroll, purchasing, contract development and tracking, travel coordination, and facilities. Fiscal Services facilitates the budget build and assists divisions in the development of the activity and biennial line item budget. Bonnie works closely with the Governor's Finance Office and Legislative Council Bureau to adjust the budget in the interim if changes are needed due to funding or authority issues. Fiscal works diligently during the legislative session to submit budget amendments and create and monitor fiscal notes to ensure funding is obtained for the implementation of proposed legislative changes. Christopher Wright is the state demographer. He is responsible for producing an annual determination of the population of towns, townships, cities, and counties, which is certified by the governor by March 1st of each year and used for revenue distributions, including the consolidated tax distribution to counties, cities, towns, and special districts. The demographer is also responsible for producing the age, sex, race, and Hispanic origin estimates and projections, 5-year projections, and 20-year population projections. This position works with the U.S. Census Bureau in conducting the decennial census. Additional information can be found on the department's website. Displayed in this particular slide is one of the demographer's products, the certified population from 2022. Erica Scott is the department's economist. She has a strong background in economic forecasting, statistical analysis, data validation, projections, and forecasting in general. This position prepares reports, graphs, charts, and presentations for reporting to state and local governments. Among other duties, the economist works with the Cannabis Compliance Board to determine the fair market value for cannabis taxability. Nicholas Wilhelm is the department's internal auditor. His role is crucial to provide checks and balances to department processes and procedures through audit and documentation. This position assesses internal controls by evaluating performance measures and verifying compliance with applicable laws. The internal auditor serves the department's primary diversity and inclusion liaison for taxpayers with language or cultural barriers. I would now like to turn the presentation over to Joe Bernardi, Deputy Director of Information Technology.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Joe Bernardi, last name spelled B-E-R-N-A-R-D-Y. I'm the Deputy Director for Information Technology for the Department of Taxation. I have the honor of leading what I consider to be the best IT team I've ever worked with in my 35-plus years as an IT professional. As you're well aware, we're in the midst of a system modernization project, so many of our daily tasks and even our organizational structure are somewhat in flux. In addition to our regular duties of supporting the business of taxation, we're also chipping in on modernization efforts such as designing, developing, and testing legacy system decommissioning tasks, building interfaces for communication between the new and legacy systems, and data extract and conversion tasks. We're doing this with a team of 29 IT professionals and IT technicians. I'd first like to discuss our internal Office of Information Security. This is a team of one master IT professional, our information security officer. He wanted to be here today to present to you, however, he's in training this week and unable to attend, so I will do my best to fill in for him. Our ISO reports directly to myself, the Deputy Director for IT, with a dotted line to the Executive Director, and also holds a position on the executive team. Our ISO duties cover everything from the strategic to tactical to operational activities, with the responsibility of helping taxation achieve its mission of receiving and distributing revenue for the state of Nevada without interruption. The goal of our information security program is to lead by example in cybersecurity excellence. In addition to Nevada regulations and administrative code, taxation is subject to IRS regulations as detailed in IRS Publication 1075, the Department of Justice Criminal Justice Information System Security Policy, and payment card industry compliance. Our environment is complex with large amounts of data. One of our key areas of focus is maintaining the security of legacy systems while implementing robust security in the new systems throughout the modernization process. NRS 603A.210 requires data collectors to comply with the current version of the Center for Internet Security Controls to the extent practicable. Taxation maintains 100% compliance with CIS Level 1 and Level 2 controls on workstations and web browsers. Any exceptions are documented with business justifications. Taxation is audited every 3 years by the IRS Office of Safeguards for compliance with IRS regulations. We completed our most recent audit in the fourth quarter of 2024 with no critical findings. Taxation has recently implemented robust multi-factor authentication for logging into every workstation prior to gaining access to any applications or data. Ransomware is a very visible and potentially disruptive problem for organizations of all types. Over the last biennium, taxation has implemented technical solutions and provided employee awareness training to help prevent ransomware from disrupting our operations. One final thought on information security. As part of maintaining a robust information security program, we have built and maintained many partnerships and fostered coordination with other state and federal agencies in an effort to improve security for taxation. We are proud of what we've been able to accomplish thus far. Moving on to other areas of the IT division, the technical services team consists of a database administration team responsible for day-to-day operations of the enterprise Oracle and SQL Server databases. The technical team is responsible for maintenance and operations of department networking and server infrastructure. The customer support team provides frontline end-user technical support. The application development team is responsible for application programming tasks for all of our legacy applications. The internal systems team performs development work in the tax administration system, or TAS. The web development team performs development work in the public-facing websites. The production support team acts as liaisons between application development teams and internal and external information system users. And the special operations person is somewhat of a freelancer who works on tasks or projects that don't fit nicely into the above silos. Our UTS modernization project is called Project Mint, which stands for Modernize Your Nevada Tax. With Project Mint, we are assigning taxation developers to the project full-time. For Rollout 1, we assigned 3 developers to Mint. Since Rollout 1 has completed, those 3 developers are now 100% on Mint for production support duties. For Rollout 2, we have assigned 7 developers full-time to Project Mint. This leaves 3 developers who are responsible for providing legacy application development support across all development areas. Bless you. I wanted to touch very briefly on how taxation has used AI in different projects. Meet Chip. He is the mascot for our chatbot on My Nevada Tax eServices website. He is a machine learning chatbot, and all questions and answers are controlled internally by Department of Taxation employees. Secondly, we have developed a new website that uses AI in its chatbot to direct taxpayers to the correct information within the site. Answers that this chatbot can provide are entirely self-contained to the website. Lastly, we wrapped up a forms project where the department used natural language processing to improve the readability of forms that we used to correspond with taxpayers. The forms project resulted in 61 Rollout 1 forms being updated with a 44% increase in reading ease score and a 3.8 decrease in grade level score. All this was done with $0 additional dollars and no taxpayer information being used. We've had such success with this project that we are looking to take on the same initiative for Rollout 2 forms, and that process will start very soon. Pursuant to NRS 360.255, the Department of Taxation is prohibited from disclosing any taxpayer information. This applies equally to putting data into any open AI system. When it comes to evaluating any project for potential artificial intelligence usage, we always ensure that we're in compliance with NRS 360.255 and any other laws, regulations, policies, and/or best practices. Now I'd like to turn it back over to Deputy Director Robert Larson.
Hello again. Adrienne Roberts-Larson, Deputy Director for the record. Guy Childers, Deputy Director for Compliance, was planning to be here today, but he had an emergency to attend to, so I will be covering the next few slides on his behalf. The Compliance Division of the Department is comprised currently of 2 main sections, Revenue and Audit, with roughly 200 employees. The department is also part of the Streamlined Sales Tax Organization. I will be giving you an overview of all of these today. Collections and Taxpayer Services comprise the revenue section and are overseen by 1 tax manager. During this legislative session, the department is seeking to split the 2 sections and get a new tax manager for taxpayer services. There are currently a rough 130 total employees in the revenue section, with 68 in collections and 62 in taxpayer services. The department also has call centers in both the Carson City and Las Vegas offices, which are staffed by tax examiners. Revenue administers 17 tax types such as sales and use tax, modified business tax, live entertainment, transportation connection, other tobacco products, cannabis, short-term lessor, peer-to-peer, and liquor, to name a few. Revenue officers are assigned to a zip code geographical area within the new tax accounting legacy system, MINT. You can see examples of that on the screen. Taxpayer services and collections are the forward-facing parts of the department, and they engage a few hundred taxpayers every day. The call centers are currently taking several thousand calls each week with the go-live of Mint. It should be noted the call centers handled over 27,000 calls in January, and in order to assist the taxpayer services with the high volume of callers since the Mint rollout, the department has utilized former revenue personnel that are now auditors with assisting the call centers over these past few months. As a part of the modernization project, the department has deployed self-service kiosks in all of the offices at the front counters to assist taxpayers to be able to use the e-services portal as part of My Nevada Tax Online. In addition, there are fully staffed front counters at each of the taxation offices that engage hundreds of taxpayers each day. Now we will move on to the audit section. Overall, the audit section provides assurance to stakeholders or participants. Partners, collaborators, and interested parties include department staff, Nevada citizens, lawmakers, fellow taxpayers, and agencies who rely upon the revenue collected to operate, that taxpayers are held to voluntary compliance with laws and regulations. The objectives of the audit section are generally the following: deter tax evasion, align taxpayer reporting with their business, taxpayer education, assurance to stakeholders or participants, partners, collaborators, and interested parties, bringing taxpayers into compliance with statute and regulation applied through audit findings, provide taxpayers guidance through understandable schedules and reports, and finally, support findings with solid evidence to ensure the department is successful in the appeals process. The audit section is comprised of 72 employees spread across 3 taxation offices consisting of 10 audit teams with 1 audit supervisor and 5 or 6 auditors per team, and each office has an audit manager overseeing 3 to 4 of those teams. We also have 1 tax manager and 2 administrative aides. Audits are performed for 17 different tax types similar to those previously mentioned, but I would add abatement audits as well. Auditors are primarily field auditors that engage the taxpayer at their place of business when possible. Auditors perform, on average, 36 audits per year, which equates to nearly 1,900 audits a year. The main goals of an audit are education and compliance. Audits are selected randomly from an inventory, but can also come from leads and tax evasion tips. It should be noted, abatement audits are different because the audit is for compliance to a contract. I would also note cannabis audits are more time-consuming due to audits for retail, wholesale, and medical cannabis are often done together because many cannabis operations are vertically integrated. As well, sales and use and modified business tax audits must also be done. In-state audits are most common. Modernization with My Nevada Tax or Mint will allow greater efficiency with audits being done electronically and data being in just one system. Moving on to Streamlined Sales Tax, or SST. The Streamlined Sales Tax Organization and Streamlined Sales Tax Governing Board guiding principle is states and businesses working together to create simpler, more uniform sales and use tax systems. The origin of Streamlined Sales Tax Governing Board began in March of 2000. The Streamlined Sales and Use Tax Agreement, or SSUTA, is the governing document of Streamline, and the main focuses of the agreement are state-level administration of sales and use tax collections, uniformity in the state and local tax bases, uniformity of major tax base definitions, central electronic registration system for all member states, simplification of state and local tax rates, uniform sourcing rules for all taxable transactions, simplified administration of exemptions and tax returns, simplification of tax remittances, and protection of consumer privacy. Streamline has also developed taxability matrices, best practices, and disclosed practices as ways to better inform taxpayers. Nevada started with Streamline in 2003 and became a full member state in April 2008. NRS 360B is the Streamline Sales Tax Nevada Revised Statute chapter. There are 23 full member states and 1 associate member state in Streamline. Sales tax reporting for Nevada from Streamline sales tax was $10 million pre-Wayfair and is now over $110 million post-Wayfair. Prior to 2018, there were approximately 3,000 registrants, and post-Wayfair is now 36,000. There are currently 6 certified service providers providing tax services for approximately 40% plus of registrants at no charge to the taxpayer. The Streamline Sales Tax Governing Board, the state of South Dakota, along with the other member states, all played a part in the ultimate U.S. Supreme Court Wayfair decision, which established and solidified the concept of economic nexus. Streamline sales tax committees are certification, audit, compliance, and interpretation, executive, finance, issue resolution, state and local advisory, business advisory council, and nominating. That is all for this particular part of the presentation, and I will now turn it over to Deputy Executive Director Jeff Mitchell.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. My name is Jeff Mitchell, M-I-T-C-H-E-L-L, and I'm the Deputy over Excise and Local Government Services within the Department of Taxation. We have a couple of different divisions within Excise and Local Government Service, including appropriately named Excise as well as Local Government Services. We also have divisions of Local Government Finance and a Special Tax Programs Audit section. The Excise Division has approximately 36 staff members across all 3 taxation offices. Excise works in taxes such as liquor, other tobacco products, live entertainment, a bunch of different taxes. Our Special Tax Audit team consists of 15 staff and performs audits on the net proceeds of minerals, commerce tax, GSET, and a variety of performance audits. And our Local Government Service and Finance sections consist of approximately 35 staff and provide a variety of valuation services, duties, projections, and publications. In addition to the various taxes listed on this slide, the excise staff also oversees various tax credits, programs including those for renewable energy projects, education, and investments in low-income areas. I'm going to go a little more into detail on a couple of different taxes, as well as some commonly posed questions regarding those taxes. First is the live entertainment tax, non-gaming. The Gaming Control Board oversees the LET, or live entertainment tax, for events held within licensed gaming establishments, and the Department of Taxation oversees it elsewhere. The rate is 9%, and it is on the admission charge to a facility with a minimum occupancy of 200. It is distributed to the State General Fund with an amount of $150,000 transferred each year to the Nevada Arts Council. This next slide covers many of the common questions, including clarifications on specific examples of what could be live entertainment. Please see the various bullet points for the slide for more specific examples of activities which are subject to the live entertainment tax. The cigarette and OTP tax, or other tobacco products tax, is governed by chapters 370 and 370A. For cigarettes, the rate is 90 mils per cigarette. A mil can be thought of as 1/1000th, so 90 mils can be thought of as 9 cents per cigarette. A common pack of cigarettes is usually 20, so a tax of approximately $1.80 a pack. The rate on other tobacco products is 30% of wholesale, and the rate on premium cigars will fall between 30 cents and 50 cents per cigar. A couple of common questions regarding other tobacco products include what the definition of OTP is, as well as how to find the wholesale price and when the tax is paid. The answers to those questions are included in the bullet points on that slide. Abatements. Abatements are a form of tax incentive to encourage private sector firms to create jobs, invest in communities, and strengthen local industries. There are a variety of different abatements offered by the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and the department receives the returns for these abatements and processes them. In addition, a compliance audit is conducted on the companies every 2 and 5 years. Yeah,
Now we're on slide 63. I thought we were going through all. Do you guys have the legal authority to audit GOED on the tax abatements?
Excuse me, Shelley Hughes for the record. I don't believe we do have legal authority to edit or audit GOED, though we do have the ability to audit any business that they contract with.
And how often do you do that?
Statute, it's every 2 and every 5 years. Shelley Hughes for the record. We do have a spreadsheet that we keep track of each business and when their last audit occurred. I do believe GOED puts together a report that is provided to the governor as well as the Legislative Council Bureau Director that would outline each date that these businesses have been audited.
I have to find that. But in the audit, do we look to see if the abatement that they received, we're actually getting the benefit or the bang for the buck? So let's say company X got $1 billion abated in taxes. Do we look on the other side and see if the state received $1 billion in revenue from their activity or behavior or more than, right? I mean, because it either needs to equal out or something needs to come back. Is that in that audit? I mean, I haven't seen it.
Shelley Hughes for the record. Our audits consist basically of making sure that they are following the requirements of the contract, whether they have hired the number of positions that they have indicated that they would hire, if they've purchased the amount of capital assets that they said that they would purchase, and there's one other, usually one other requirement that they have to fulfill per the contract that we audit them for.
But hypothetically, there was a statute that somehow popped up in this session that said you need to check to see if there is value for the abatement given. And an auditor from the tax department was then assigned to find out if there was true revenue gained from that abatement to company X. Would you be able to do it?
Shelley Hughes for the record. I would have to talk with our economist. I think our economist would have to be involved as well as our auditors. And I think from my perspective, I think we probably could, but I would need to dig deeper into that to confirm. Will do.
thank you, Madam Chair. Jeff Mitchell for the record. Local Government Services, that division. The functionalities of this division are fairly diverse, but one of the specific taxes that is often referred to is centrally assessed property tax. This tax can be thought of property that crosses state or county lines, picture railroads or airlines. We value the company as a unit, and then we allocate the property taxes from that company to the appropriate jurisdictions based on the various property tax rates of those entities. Local Government Services also provide oversight and guidance to the county assessors. We've published a variety of publications to help maintain a fair and equitable property tax system through the state. One of the tools I would highlight in the slide is referred to as the ratio study. This is where we visit a county once every 3 years. We take a sample of the property within that county and we value it, and we compare it to the assessor's valuation, as well as review in-house policy and procedures to ensure fair and equitable taxation. One last functionality of excise and local government services that I'd like to highlight is that of local government finance. The division was mentioned before in their close working relationship to the Committee on Local Government Finance, and I would like to turn the time back to Chief Deputy Yvonne Navarez-Goodson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, Yvonne Navarez-Goodson. I'll be providing an overview of the licensing and investigation units of the department related to tobacco and liquor. Other tobacco products, as you may be aware, is referred to as OTP.
So for time, because we're on page, 67? Can we just dive right in and just ask on pages that we want to ask? Does committee have any specific pages that they want to ask on before the licensing? I know I do. Okay, let's just jump right in. All right. So just going back to the local government finance page, because you mentioned SB 78 in your slide. And in that slide, it says that basically local government finance section oversees about 260 Nevada local governments. So technically, this is policy committee, so you can talk a little bit about a policy. What's the impact? I believe it's in section 33, I think, of SB 78. But what's the effect of that being placed under this new created entity?
If I may, Madam Chair, Yvonne Navarez-Goodson for the record. I'm not entirely sure, but what I would speculate is that all of the administrative functions of handling the committee work, scheduling meetings, posting agendas, the legal work, all of that administrative side would happen under the new centralized office. But because the department's local government finance section are what we would refer to as the subject matter experts over the local government budgets, we anticipate, and typically what does happen in that committee is that our individual staffers appear before that committee to advise the committee on what it's seeing with respect to the different local government budgets. So it would be my expectation that while the department may no longer have the staffing role of the committee work, that we would still inform the committee based upon our local government finance section.
And then I have a different question. I'm just going to go back to the abatement conversation. So I was looking at the expenditure report, and when you take the abatements and the exemptions, just those two, it was like roughly 7.5 billion that had been abated, right? So I'm looking at this expenditure report and I'm saying, man, what if that money was in the general fund, right? And how could we use and fund services which are actually going on in the state of Nevada? And that's why I really wanted to know about, who is really, really looking and who has the power, whether or not there's some kind of bar. Because I know there was like these confidentiality statutes that were placed in the GO-ED statutes. And so about, and we find out about the deal on the back end. But ultimately, I think there's a larger conversation that needs to be had about where we're going in that space since 2011, about the revenue that we actually need and that we're abating, and whether or not we're really seeing, because technically if it's working, then we should see this outgrowth, right, in return to the state in terms of revenue. We should see MBT, we should see other categories grow because we have invested, right? So when they're paying employees and they're saying, okay, we brought X amount of employees into the state, so MBT should somehow, because that's the payroll tax, it's the head tax, right? So that we should be able to see some kind of jump, right? So let's say we brought in like 300 companies. I don't necessarily see that growth based on 7.5 billion, and that's just two categories. I'm not even rolling in credits, not rolling in anything else. I'm just talking about abatements and exemptions, meaning what you are not paying to come here and do business. And I know that this is kind of like a side part of what you guys look at, but I really want to have a broader conversation with the tax department, the tax division, around how to get into the statute and make some real changes to see some money come back. Even if it was $3 billion that came back into to the account, the general revenue, where we're saying, all right, right? Senator Neal can no longer run around and try to raise taxes, right? Because ultimately I wouldn't even have a leg to stand on, right? If we actually had an additional $3 billion to talk about raising revenue, because it's out there, we abated it, and we told somebody you don't have to pay it. That's a problem. So I'm gonna have a thought session with you guys. I haven't had one in a couple years, but I'm gonna. All right. Members, do you have any? All right, so I'm gonna keep going. So there was a presentation the other day, from the Office of Small Business under the Lieutenant Governor, and they were saying that they are having to look at the three-tier liquor system and help businesses sort through the three tiers and areas where the liquor law may apply or may not apply. And so my direct question to them was, hey, have you talked to the Department of Taxation? Like, this is actually squarely under their authority. Why are you dipping into this space? Have you guys had a conversation with them? Are you engaging with them? Is there some secret education on the three-tier system that I'm not aware of?
Shelley Hughes, Department of Taxation. We have not had a direct conversation with the Lieutenant Governor's office on this issue. I believe one or two times they have reached out to us with businesses that have contacted their office regarding their liquor license. We do have a BDR or a bill that will be coming before this committee on liquor. We have noticed that with the three-tier system, it is a very confusing and complex system, and even our local governments sometimes have some difficulty with the statutes, and so we're trying to bring some clarity with that bill. But with the Lieutenant Governor's office directly, we have not sat down and had any type of educational meetings.
Well, that's good to know. I was just super curious. I mean, I understand that everybody's trying to survive, right? The 25 session. But I just thought it was interesting that they were somehow engaging in some level of advice, I guess, in the three-tier system. The other question I had, you were talking about excise taxes and marketplace facilitators clearly in excise tax. Have we, I know you can't tell us specifically like who you're taxing, but there was a question that came up. So since 2019, there have been so much movement in marketplace facilitator and what probably was our definition in 2019. And sometimes, we put in the catch-all clauses and we have vague enough language where we can pick up people. So first question is the language in marketplace facilitator broad enough where it's capturing everybody? Because now, Instacart became real in COVID, right? Like that was literally, they found their foothold. They were like, hey, pandemic, you're going to get some groceries at home. And then everyone else, Smith's, Albertsons, all of them joined, right? And so technically, once they started their online market, that's a marketplace facilitator. Does the language allow us to pick up that new activity? Are they in or are they out?
Madam Chair, Shelley Hughes, for the record. And as you mentioned, we can't really confirm or deny a taxpayer's information. I can tell you that we do have 164 verified marketplace facilitators as of December 2024. For fiscal year 24, that taxable sales and general fund revenue contributed to those marketplace facilitators. Fiscal year 24 was $4.11 billion, and the 2% general fund revenue was $82.1 million contributed to the marketplace facilitators. I believe we are finding and capturing a lot of those marketplace facilitator sales. Obviously, we probably aren't capturing 100% of those operating in the field, but I do believe we do a great job of locating them and finding them.
That's super good to know, because Mr. Nakamoto had actually went back and Mr. Tower went back, and I had asked them, like, what was our original projections when it first came out, and then, you know, how we grew. And so I think, what was it, Mr. Nakamoto? We had like 10 or 21, I think, in the original in 2019 that we thought were marketplace facilitators. So to see that, you know, that potential 10 or 21 grew to 164 tells me that the language is broad enough, because there's, you know, you always have to go back and do a second look at legislation and find out, do the definitions still meet the business behavior, right? And so that's the kind of the broader question that I really want to understand. And then, you know, you guys know I've had the digital goods for like ever, but there's crossover, right? And so is in a way, are some of the digital players being captured in the marketplace facilitator?
Shelley Hughes, for the record, that I will have to get back to you on. I'm not quite sure. I would assume that they are, but I can't confirm right now.
I'm always plotting, right? Like, could I just find a way, you know, into the marketplace facilitator language since it's already there, and then just expand? And then, you know, Mr. Nakamoto would have to, you know, help me with the VHS and the 8-tracks. But ultimately, right, I'm always thinking, like, the language is already there and they're kind of finding their foothold there. Like, could I just go back and amend marketplace facilitator? Another thought session for us. Members, do you have any additional questions? No gaming questions? Am I the only person that cares about revenue? Ditto. So I did want to go back to one thing. So on the LET slide, you guys had listed who's in. And I thought escorts were out, or maybe the refund mechanism is what was removed. That's been my running joke since 2015. But I saw, because the first thing that came to my mind was, are we auditing that? Like, who is escorting someone to an event? But it looked like it was in. Is it in?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Yvonne Navarez-Bitson, yes, escort services are covered by the live entertainment tax. What sometimes is misunderstood about the escort services is that it does not include prostitution. So by definition, escort services do not include prostitution.
Yeah, but you know, it really doesn't have to. Okay, I'm sorry. Because there are real, like, escort services. But do you audit that? How does that work? I mean, I'm just super curious about this one, just because I thought it was out. Because you know, you guys, 2015, you weren't necessarily, you know, the administrator, but you were in tax. And it was a heavy discussion about the refund mechanism. And if you have to, the escort didn't show up, and you're like, how do I get my money back? Because the escort didn't attend the function that I asked them to do. And we had a huge conversation, and then that was like deja vu, because I was like, escorts are actually in the LET, which means, interesting activity. So do we audit this? Do we?
Thank you again. For the record, Yvonne Navarez-Bitson, yes, they would be subject to audit. I can't speak to a particular audit that I'm aware of for that, but yes, I guess they would be potentially subject to refund, assuming that we had the record and the documentation to approve that type of refund. I'm just not familiar with the fact that we've had one of those in particular.
Okay. All right, well, Senator Dunyate.
Thank you so much, Chair. Really quickly, I know we talked about OTP. I know last session we had a discussion as to where, I'm trying to think of the term. Cannabis oil vapes fit into the narrative of OTP. Are we still struggling with that issue? Is that something that still needs to be resolved? Do you understand what I'm trying to ask? Maybe I can be a little bit more clear.
Shelley Hughes, for the record, I vaguely recall us having that conversation, but I might need you to kind of go in more detail.
Yeah, so the issue that I understand is there's a gray area as to if I purchase a vape that is using cannabis oil, right, instead of a traditional vape, is that covered under the OTP definition? I think we had this discussion last time because it was the gray area. Does that issue still exist? / does it need legislative revision? That was more so my question, because I know this came up during last session.
Shelley Hughes for the record. We have not encountered that situation, so I'm assuming that it has been resolved. If it is a cannabis oil that is being sold, then that does have to be sold by a licensed cannabis facility. So it would not technically fall under the OTP category.
Then I just have one final question on the cannabis part. I have been talking to, I guess, cannabis has grown significantly since we, first, I guess, passed it and then put statute in place to deal with it. But they are, my understanding that, you can add, so you can put additives to it. And what I was hearing from a police officer, was saying that, the additives can be so strong that they're actually super, super addictive. And so I don't think that's anything that you guys regulate, but in terms of if they have an additive that they're selling, are we capturing that at all, or there's no law in place for the additional things that may be attached to it?
Shelley Hughes for the record. So as you might be aware, we capture the tax at the wholesale level. So when a cultivator is selling a product from the cultivation level, it will be subject to the fair market value. There's, I believe, 7 categories that it can fall under, one being flower, small bud, pre-rolls. And then at the retail level, that's sold from a retail store to a consumer, and then we capture the tax at that level. Now, if something is added to a product, it depends on if it's added to the product at the cultivation level and sold, then we would capture that tax at that point. But if something is added at a production level, we do not tax the production facilities, and so it would not be captured at that point. Now, if they sell that to a retail facility and the retailer sells the product to a consumer, we would be taxing 15% of that, or 10%, excuse me, of that sales price.
All right. Well, I know you need to finish the presentation, but I appreciate all of the slides, and we will read them, or I will read them. And we will go ahead and close out this presentation because we still have to do mint.
Thank you very much. Please do get a
Yeah.
hold of us if you have any questions.
So Senator Dunyate has a question on licensing.
Oh,
Sorry, just really quickly. Thank you, Chair. I know last year we passed AB 53, right? That was one that dealt with the sales of tobacco products from the Attorney General's office. Do you recall? We raised the penalties for. I'm trying to recollect. Have we seen an effect of once the bill has been passed? Are there modifications, or do you have any updates since we passed that legislation?
Shelley Hughes for the record. So we have our ALJs over here, those cases when they're appealed. So we have seen several of them come forward and go to the ALJs. I think coming in March will be the first time that they'll be appealed to the actual commission. And so at that point, I think we'll be able to have more information for you to see how that law has captured, what it was intending to capture.
Now we will move into the mint presentation.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Patrick Starr, Patrickstarr. I'm the Enterprise Project Manager for the Department of Taxation. I'm joined by some members of my team to showcase the newly launched My Nevada Tax. But before we get started, I would like for them to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Jane Maurer, for the record, last name spelled M-A-U-R-E-R, and I'm the functional lead for the Enterprise Project Management Office. And right now, my focus is on Project Mint.
All right, thank you, good afternoon, Madam Chair and the committee. For the record, this is Aria Malloy, last name M-O-L-L-O-Y, and I'm the Business Process Analyst on Project Mint.
Thank you, Patrick Starr, for the record. So we're going to jump right into our presentation. There we go. All right, and we're going to start off with our agency mission statement. The mission statement of Department of Taxation is to provide a fair, efficient, and effective administration of tax programs for the state of Nevada in accordance with applicable statutes, regulations, and policies to serve the taxpayers and state and local government entities and enable and recognize department employees. We also have a mission statement for Project Mint that I want to share with you today. The mission of Project Mint is to modernize the Nevada tax system to serve the needs of the taxpayers in a customer-centric and efficient environment while maintaining the best interests of all Nevadans. I wanted to share these mission statements with you today because we continuously turn back to these mission statements as our North Star when developing a product that we believe the Nevada taxpayers deserve. I will now hand over the presentation to my team to give a brief overview of the project and then demonstrate how simple it is to use.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for your time today. For the record, I'm Jane Maurer. Prior to selecting a vendor, we established clear objectives, and that's what helped guide our selection process. So number one, we needed a modern, secure, commercial off-the-shelf solution that would meet taxation's needs and requirements with minimal customization. By going with the minimal customization, that helped make sure that we would deliver on time. The solution had to be sustainable, continuously upgraded, and secure with a proven record of product reinvestment. We didn't want to end up with a product that could no longer be supported after 5 or 10 years. The solution had to support taxation size and complexity. We actually looked closely at other states and jurisdictions that were similar in size and revenue to Nevada. We met with them, questioned them, gathered as much information as possible from them to ensure that we would have a successful project. The department had to partner with a vendor. Sorry about that. The department had to partner with a vendor who would proactively engage in knowledge transfer with our technical staff. We were seeking a vendor for an ongoing relationship and one we could partner with to operate and maintain the new system. And finally, our agency needed a culture change. We needed a vendor that would partner with our organizational change management to prepare staff to adopt new business practices and transition to the new system. We needed a vendor that could understand the need for a culture shift and help us cultivate the change. Key business goals. As the functional lead for Project Mint and former business owner, I'm incredibly passionate about these goals. Improved customer service. More functions are now available to our stakeholders online. We were able to streamline our services. I know Joe earlier had commented about our plain language initiative, and not only did that apply to our forms and correspondences, but it also applies to My Nevada Tax, which is the e-services platform with our new system. Improving staff efficiency. So prior to Mint, we were very siloed. We would have one person that would do a process, and they would pick up a piece of paper from a wire basket, do their process, put it in another basket, someone else would pick it up and do that process. Again, that's how all of us operated in the past, but we wanted to bring it into this century. We didn't have the collaboration or the knowledge of the big picture within our staff. Now with Mint, we're getting that opportunity to collaborate, let our staff grow and see the full picture, and get rid of the paper processes. Enforcing compliance with tax rules and regulations. Going back to when I mentioned that we spoke with other jurisdictions, we asked them to show us their results from whatever vendor they used to say, hey, did your compliance increase? Did your revenue generation increase? And that played a part into our vendor selection. Modernization in general also helps increase the consistency, which also helps with compliance. Another benefit, I think we're back one slide here, was to leverage the data to analyze and improve tax processes. So with Mint, we have key performance indicators that are readily available, and all staff actions are tracked and auditable. Increase agility to respond to changing business conditions. I'm going off script a little bit here because there were many questions about abatements. One thing that's nice about our operation is that with Mint, it operates with configurations versus hardcore code. So it's much easier for the department to do rate adjustments and adapt to special situations such as abatement, and make sure that we're tracking those key indicators that are in the abatement contracts within our single source of truth, which is Project Mint. Cultivate digital dexterity. This ties back to our customer service and our staff efficiencies. More online capabilities for our taxpayers. Streamline electronic processes for our staff. Online attestations and electronic signatures in lieu of paper wet signatures. Another goal, retire legacy systems and infrastructures. Our main legacy system is being held together by the digital equivalent of duct tape and paper clips. It's time for a replacement. We needed that to be replaced. But in addition to that system, we have many subsystems, including Access databases and Excel spreadsheets that will all be encompassed into one modernized system. Enhanced cybersecurity posture. Joe talked about that earlier too. We have to protect our sensitive taxpayer data and mitigate losses that could occur from cyber attacks and data breaches. Cyber criminals are experts in artificial intelligence, and we need a system that's prepared to combat this ever-changing environment. We got that system, and we've gone into rollout. December 9th, we had phase 1 rollout. Let's talk a little bit about pre-Mint. Limited filing. Only 4 tax types were available to file online. By the time we have our 3rd rollout, every tax type that we have within our agency will be available to our taxpayers to file online. Unable to update demographics. Taxpayers couldn't update their phone numbers or address or corporate officers online. Now they can do that. Additional services weren't available. Taxpayers couldn't request or manage a payment plan. They can now. They weren't able to print their licenses and permits. They can now. Our staff's hands were tied when it came to assisting a taxpayer when they were online. That was tough. We would get a phone call and the taxpayer would have to talk, or our staff would have to talk with the taxpayer to try to figure out where they were when they were online because they couldn't see where they were. Now we have a customer support button that our staff can click on. They can see exactly where that taxpayer is and talk them through the transaction. In addition to that button, we also have a web logon function where even if the taxpayer calls the next day and says, I was online, the system's new to me, I just need a little bit of help, our staff can click on that web logon button and see exactly what clicks they did the day before and help them through that. Not ADA compliant. This is one that is kind of near and dear to me because of my mature eyes. With our old system, I would be leaning in and squinting to see. Now we can increase the size, and we do have an ADA compliant system now. Not optimized for mobile devices. I'd mentioned earlier that I used to have my own business, and I was out of the country trying to file my taxes online. I had my phone, not a desktop. Luckily, I had all the fields of our old online system memorized, so I was able to file. But because our legacy online system was not scalable, you couldn't tell what field you were entering if you were on your phone. Now, with My Nevada Tax, it is scalable. Our taxpayers are able to do it not only on a desktop computer, but on a laptop, on their phone, on pretty much any mobile device. And then last but not least, the paper-driven processes from our life pre-mint. The taxpayers had to print and complete a paper form for most tax types. All amendments required a paper copy where the taxpayer would physically cross out the original numbers and handwrite in new figures. We needed to modernize, and now that will become a thing of the past. For phase one, we went live on December 9th, and with that came the ability for the taxpayers to file and manage all the tax types and licenses listed on this slide, and that is in your handout. Tax types available on My Nevada Tax. Going forward, as I mentioned earlier, all of our tax types will be available by Rollout 3. Phase 2 is going to go live December of 2025, this year, and we're adding quite a few tax types, and we're adding tax types that have never even been a part of our main system in the past. And then December of 2026, all of our tax types will be encompassed into our one modernized system. Service is available on My Nevada Tax. If a taxpayer is logged in, they're going to be able to do so many more services than they ever were before. And that is in your handout that you can take a look at. Now, in addition to the logged in services, just like if you're logging into one of your medical sites. I know I'm from Las Vegas, and down in Las Vegas we have Quest Medical. If I log into Quest Medical, they have services that I can do when I'm not even logged in. For instance, paying a bill. So in addition to our logged on services, we also offered all of these non-logged on services, everything from making a payment to booking an appointment, submitting a tax evasion tip. Also, all of our letters and correspondences have a code on them to where the taxpayer can input that into the system and then know how to address it right then and there online. Okay, with that, I'm going to be turning it over to my colleague to actually give you a little insight into our actual system. She's going to start in the production environment and introduce you to our chatbot Chip, which Joe had kind of given you a heads up about earlier. And then she's going to go to the actual e-services, but it is going to be in our test environment, and she will be using fictitious data there. And that's where we're mainly going to concentrate, so you can see the ease of use for the taxpayers. And then finally, she'll give you just a really brief overview of what our staff sees. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ariel.
All right, thank you, Jane, and to the committee and Madam Chair and the committee. This is My Nevada Tax. This is what the taxpayers get to see, whether it's on a day-to-day basis, monthly or quarterly. And as we mentioned here, we do have all the services offered right at our homepage for taxpayers to easily access. But you can see at the upper top hand corner right here, here's this cute little guy. Let's click on him and see if he can help us today. So as mentioned earlier by Joe, this is Chip. He is our chatbot for My Nevada Tax. So he is there to help assist taxpayers. So as more taxpayers interact with him on a day-to-day basis, he grows in confidence levels based on with the machine learning and department staff managing it. So let's ask a very common question that taxpayers would ask, which is, how do I register my business? Once I ask that, he comes in with a very prompt response. So the first link here redirects a taxpayer to go and create a web logon and then seamlessly takes them over to register their new business. And then for our second link, if the taxpayer is a little bit unsure of what resources they need to have when it comes to registering for their business with the Department of Taxation, the second link, which will provide the single source of truth from our taxation website. When we click here, the taxpayer will be redirected to our website and directly on how to start/run a business inside the state of Nevada. And then after the taxpayer has reviewed our website and ensure they have all the correct information needed when they're registering for their business, they can click on this first link right here and do it. To provide more of a demonstration of My Nevada Tax, especially when it comes to web logon and filing, I will be going into our production support testing environment. It is identical to our production environment except it has no taxpayer data, and this is all fictitious. So today I'll be registering as Bob. And then in line with our cybersecurity initiative, taxpayers must have two-factor authentication. That will be in the form of authentication app, email, or phone number. So as you can see here, since everything memorized, the system memorized my computer as a safe device, I've been automatically logged in. And then here, this is what the taxpayer will see. The first part is the overall business information that the taxpayer has registered. And then as we scroll down, we'll see all the relevant tax types that the taxpayer is registered for. So as you can see here, just alone, the taxpayer can see their account ID, the amount of active permits that they have, the balance, and as well when they need to file for their next return. So I'm going to click on File Return, View and File Past Returns. And then here, the taxpayer can see a summary of all the returns they have filed on My Nevada Tax. So I am going to file for this demonstration the January 31st, 2025 period. So once I click on File Now, the taxpayer will be greeted by a reporting questionnaire. This helps guide the taxpayer of what they need to enter for their sales and use return. So the first question asks, do you have any sales to report for this period? Since I sold a substantial amount of merchandise for this month, I'm going to select on yes. And then for the second question, do you have any purchases subject to use tax for this period? I'm going to select no, since I do not have anything that will fall under use tax. And then this third question right here may look a little bit different compared to all the other questions, especially when it comes to the text color. And it asks, do you have any over-collected sales tax to report for this period? I can hover over this link and it'll have a little help topic. So when it comes to our mostly commonly asked questions or terms that taxpayers don't see on a day-to-day basis, we do have a help topic to help guide them, and it will have the related NAC or NRS tied to that. So after reviewing this, I did not overcollect on my sales tax, and I do not need to report it for this period. So I'm going to continue and click on Next. Here, this is where I would enter in my county detail information, so I'm going to click on this link. And then the taxpayer has to enter in the county and then the total sales or exempt sales they have for this month. So as you can see here, it is a lovely drop-down menu, but if I want to type in, I can also type in the county I want to file for. So I will select Carson City and then enter my total sales. And then once I'm all complete, I will click on Add. And if I notice I have any issues or I need to make any adjustments when it comes to this table, I can click on this Edit Row icon right here. And then it will take me back to the same screen so I can make my adjustments, and then I'll click on OK. And then if I need to remove any information, I can also use this little X right there. So after reviewing everything and I don't need to make any more adjustments, I'm going to proceed on.
So if you're currently in the tax.nv.gov, right, you were in the system filing, were you automatically rolled into Mint for the sales and use tax? If you're a current taxpayer, you're automatically in?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when it comes to that, due to many decisions that we made, we decided not to automatically roll over our OLT web logons onto Mint. So taxpayers would have to create a new web logon, but they have the option, there's a link that says link to an existing business. And then there, the taxpayer has to provide information regarding their business, such as FEIN, their type of corporation, when they started in the state, and provide that necessary information to make sure that they are authorized user on the account.
So if it started on December 9th, did a notice go out, or are they being treated, because it's monthly, right, on your sales and use tax? So would they be delinquent if they haven't updated and gone over into Mint?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Patrick Starr for the record. We did send communications prior to Mint going live, asking for everybody to prepare for this and that they would have to create a new logon for this system. As far as delinquency and everything afterwards, we had discussed within the agency if we were going to put a pause on that to allow for a period of time that everybody could get back into the system and everything there. So we wanted the customer experience or the taxpayer experience to not be affected in a sense that they were going to be penalized for our developing a new system.
So another question, what other, like, since you've rolled it out on December 9th, have you actually done like community outreach to businesses so that they know? Like just hosting as Nevada Department of Taxation, hey, we have a new taxpayer system, come out and attend so you can learn how to use it, being that you are in the old system.
Madam Chair, Patrick Starr for the record, and thank you for that question. In fact, we had the notifications go out. We had some communications. Our agency PIO, Patricia, did have a lot of conversations with some of the commerce groups, and we are furthering that. We realized that with our onboarding of our new OCM, or organizational change manager, we're working out some plans currently where we would like to engage even further. We want to have some town halls where we can showcase the system like we're doing now with you guys, just so that we can get these questions answered.
Because I feel like it should be definitely like a presentation with the Nevada Grow Group, right? Which now, we have, 7 chambers that are now a part of NV Grow. And like, I'm thinking about all the micro businesses or even the businesses that are just starting, but because they have to create their sales and use tax and they may not have any revenue, but they still have to file 0 every month, they're probably not crossing over into Mint. Like because typically, right, because they're 0, they're still mentally battling the fact that they have to file every month 0, but you know what I'm saying? And so there's like this whole group that after we get to March, they're going to be delinquent 3 months and then have to go back into the system, create a new login, and then, get up to date.
Absolutely, Madam Chair, Patrick Starr for the record. I completely agree with you. We definitely want to make sure that our Nevada taxpaying constituency is brought into this fold with us. We don't want the experience to be negative, so we are working now on doing everything we can to get those communications out there and to help prevent this situation that we're speaking of.
Okay. You can continue. I feel like this is another, like I want to help figure out how to, while I'm up here, coordinate with staff down south so you guys can show the rollover, because I know that they haven't rolled over. I know they haven't. Like, I'm just thinking right now about all the people who weren't necessarily filing their return under tax.nv.gov, right? And they're like, Mint who? You know what I mean? Like, this is just a real thing. And it's also been a real point of education for smaller businesses to do the sales and use tax, right? It's one of the largest areas where there's a gap and there's like a loss there because most small businesses, new ones, are not familiar with this and they sell products and they don't know that they should actually be filing a sales and use tax for, the soap that they just created and sold at, some event. You understand what I'm saying? And so there's a real education point here on 2 fronts.
Madam Chair, thank you. Patrick Starr for the record again, if I may. I absolutely, again, agree with you on this. This is the absolute reason why I wanted to read those mission statements to you guys before we started. We take the taxpayer's experience absolutely to heart. Whenever there is change and adoption of change, whether it's internal with the system and our folks that are administering the taxes, or with the taxpaying constituency again, and the change that is applied there, it's always stress, right? There's a stress. People don't like change. So when it comes to education, we actually take that very seriously, and we're working on making that happen.
And I was just really quick, because I was also thinking, like, so, you know, UNR Cooperative Extension is a part of our NV Grow network since last session, but they have a lot of videos that they help businesses get acclimated to. And I just feel like, you know, while we're doing our capital readiness program, while we're like doing all this stuff, like this should be one of the components in our curriculum. You know, while you're getting capital ready, how do you get tax ready to pay? Yeah. And just do a quick video and say, you need to get acclimated to this. Like if you guys couldn't come down and we had a video where, like, you know, before you're gonna get the revenue, but you also need to pay your taxes to Nevada. Like, watch this video, get enrolled, right? Because we're currently doing cohorts of classes, and I feel like this should be a part of one of our curriculum pieces.
Madam Chair, Patrick Starr for the record again. Again, I agree. We have 6 videos up on the site currently and are in development of some more. So one of the things that we're doing currently with our call center is evaluating the calls that are coming in and the subject matter that is there, and then looking at that and saying, okay, if we had an increase in volume of calls and all the subject matter was, I can't file my tax, then we dive in, figure out why, and then we create a video around that. So that is part of our mitigation of any challenge that might be happening out there to the taxpayer. So I completely agree. Videos are a huge way for us to be able to allow a taxpayer to self-help.
Question from Senator Cruz Crawford.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. I was following along with Chair Neal. Thank you, Chair Neal. Are we tracking the number of people that have, or businesses that have not signed up yet? And do we have like a percentage of who have?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Through you to Senator Cruz Crawford, Patrick Starr for the record. We do have the means to track. And one of the things that we're doing currently is to send out some notifications to those that have not yet converted. So we need to actually operate in our legacy system and in the new system, and then cross-link those to see who has not yet, and then send out a proper notification to those. Throughout this year, we'll be sending out a major part of our communications are going to be around MBT. So we had the MBT filers that filed with SUT all in groups, and then we had to send out notifications to them prior to our first release, where we told them they're going to have to operate in 2 systems, and that was going to be a pain point for them. Now we need to capture the rest of that group that's in MBT and have them at the ready to be able to convert into the new system around the November, December timeframe.
I noticed with the changeover of systems, there's that bell curve, right? You have the runners, then the followers, and then those tier 3 that you need to pull out. So it would be helpful to share a timeline of what would be an appropriate time to then start outreach directly to those that might need that tier 3 support.
Absolutely. Patrick Starr for the record. Senator Cruz Crawford, I appreciate that. We can share our communications plan and what that looks like. We're in development for this year of how we're going to put that forward. But once that's done, we can certainly get that to you guys if there's interest.
Senator Stone.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to say how impressed I am with this program. Coming from our neighboring state of California and being in the pharmacy business, telling my accountant, okay, he wanted the figures so he could send in the sales tax. What a remarkably easy system to get involved with. And I do like the mission statement that you mentioned before. You're trying to make it customer friendly for something that the customers don't usually like to do, pay taxes, right? So does the software send any reminders out to taxpayers that, by the way, remember that your X tax is due by the 30th of this month? And if it doesn't, does it automatically assess late charges where somebody can go on and say, I forgot to pay the sales tax, I'm late, I'm going to pay my penalty?
So, Patrick Starr for the record. Thank you, Senator Stone, for the question. We do have control over the system and what notifications go out and frequency, and we can set that up with, you have 30 days to get to your next tax and when it's due and everything else. And we do have automated notifications based on that that do go out. And as far as penalty and interest being applied in the system, it does actually calculate when they are late, then that is automatically applied to their account, and will continually, calculate there.
Then if I could continue, your ability to extract data with the quantitative and qualitative in many ways, is that true?
Yes, Patrick Starr for the record, Senator Stone, that's absolutely true. We are able to run ad hoc reports very quickly. I want to shoot myself in the foot, but if you were to have a need and from your perspective asked us to give you certain numbers, we would be able to very quickly have a turnaround. That in the old system, it was a little bit clunky in a sense that we would have to figure out what table is non-relational databases that we're trying to link together and pull data from. This is a relational database. We have data lakes set up that we can just very quickly pivot and pull some numbers. And then we have metrics that are actually captured in the system automatically that we know that we're going to need. So we're able to see things like volumes of late filers. We could just do a quick report on that, or that type of thing.
And let me just talk about fraud for a second. I would assume that this program has algorithms where you can see aberrations and tax payments based on the business types. Is that something that is automatically done by the software to flag certain accounts that may have paid $10,000 in tobacco tax, and all of a sudden this month they're only paying $750? Is that something that has to be manually logged into, or are you prompted by the software to say, hey, you might want to look at this batch of taxpayers for some aberrations that might have occurred?
Patrick Starr for the record, Senator Stone, that's a great question. There are a lot of security features in this system. So when there are these anomalies that don't look quite right, or it seems like there's somebody out there or a bot that might be trying to create a bunch of businesses and things like that, there will be some flags for us. Some of the deeper the ones that we would need to dive into, we would need to be able to run a report and look at that. Our security officer, our ISO, gets a report that then he can look through and see some of these things and be able to call out on his own. So to answer your question, there is some automation there that we could build upon now that we're live, and to further that will be enhanced by somebody sitting there manually and looking at these things. Absolutely.
This is Aria Malloy for the record. I will continue on. So at ease of the taxpayer, as we mentioned before, the taxpayer does not have to calculate their sales rate or even their sales tax. This is pre-calculated by the system based on the total sales and then exempt sales that the user inputs. So the user can review how much per line, how much that they owe in sales and use tax. And then once they reviewed everything, we'll proceed. And then here, this is an overall view of the bill that is owed for this return. We break down the total sales and as well if there's any penalty and interest if they're filing late. And then in addition, there's a collection allowance, and which again, to circle back, we do have a little help text to help assist the taxpayers of how collection allowance is calculated with this submission. And then all the way at the bottom, the taxpayer has to attest, has to acknowledge the attestation at the bottom, which states, I declare under perjury, under penalty of perjury that the information provided is true, correct, and complete to the best of my knowledge and belief, and acknowledge that pursuant NRS 239.330, it is declared Category C felony to knowingly offer any false or forged instrument for filing. The taxpayer cannot proceed without acknowledging this at all. So I will acknowledge it and then proceed on with the return. So the taxpayer, in addition with our e-services with filing returns, they can also make payments with their returns at once without having to go back and make a separate payment. So as you can see here, the taxpayer does have three options when it comes to payment. The first is bank account, so they'll make an ACH debit payment. And then the second is a credit card. We do interface with CyberSource, which captures the information. And then third, if the taxpayer is not comfortable with paying at this moment, they can always pay later. So at this moment, I'll pay with the bank account. And then here, the taxpayer does not even have to memorize the total, the taxable sales that are due for this return. They would just have to confirm at the amount at the bottom, but if the taxpayer does want to make a partial payment on their return, they'll just have to edit the amount at the top and then have to confirm it. So I will enter in right now. And then here, another ease that Mint provides is that we can save different payment channels when it comes to ACH debit payments. So, or additionally, they can add a new one if they want to do so. And then here, since this is purely test, we do have fictitious routing numbers that are associated with fake banks. But for this moment, I'm just going to use one of my default payment channels that I have preloaded in the system. And as I scroll down, here's the billing information. And then once everything has been confirmed with the payment, I'll just select submit. And there we go. Our return has been submitted at ease. And then every web request, there is a confirmation number. So just in case if the taxpayer has any questions later on, they can always call our call center. And then they can look up the confirmation code as needed. So when I go back to the returns tab, I can see all the returns and as well my new submission. If I notice I had errors about an hour later, I can go back onto my Nevada tax, view my submission, and then I can go ahead either delete the return if I believe it's completely wrong, or I can withdraw it and then essentially amend the return right there before our nightly processing. If it's about a day later, everything has been received by the department, the taxpayer will see a new link where their status has been received, and then as well they can view or amend their return. So they can view past returns as well, print them, and then if needed, they have to amend it. It's very similar to filing a sales and use tax return, except with the addition that they must provide additional information that backs up their amendment. And this will be accessible by staff. So let's see what staff gets to see on their day-to-day basis. So as we can see here, this is what staff will see. This is their new manager, which will have it'll have a selection of all the managers and as well the most recent. So if I was working with a taxpayer and they later call again, I could easily pull up their business information. So I was previously working with Bob's Burgers, so I can click on his customer profile right here. So very similar to our e-services, this is the 360 customer springboard for our taxpayer. It will have the overall information about the customer and then all the tax types that they're registered for. So, and then this will include the debit balance and then any of the license locations. So let's dig a little bit deeper into their sales and use tax account. So as you can see here, we can see the period breakdown inside this 360 springboard. And then when I click on tax, I can see all the returns that the taxpayer has submitted. And as well, if they file, whether it be on paper or online, it has an associated batch number with it. So let's click on that and dig a little deeper to see this specific return for the 12/31/2024 period. And then as you can see here, we can see what the taxpayer has inputted, and as well, when I scroll down a little bit, I can see the sales tax that is owed, and then as well, if they paid with the return, and then any penalty and interest that has been calculated. So as department staff, they are able to make changes to the return, and as Jane mentioned earlier with the audit trail, anything that our department staff does, it does have a trail with their associated name and any actions that they made inside the system, and this can be reviewed by their supervisors and our executive staff. So if there's any changes needed to be made on the return, the department staff can change the return, which essentially will work as an amendment. And then as well, if they need to transfer the return, so for example, a very common issue is our taxpayers would call us and say they accidentally filed their November period. Instead, they filed it inside December with their November actuals. We can always change the period dates over, so we'll change the December filing over to November. with at ease, and then as well by account if they accidentally filed for wrong account. But take note that it has to be a sales and use account equal to it, so we can't transfer a sales and use tax return to a cigarette return. And then they can always reverse the return, which will make the return information only, but we do have an audit trail, so we can compare any prior returns. That will be including information and amendments. And then last but not least, they can always change the due date on the returns. So this concludes my portion when it comes to the demonstration of my Nevada tax.
Awesome, Madam Chair, this is Patrick Starr for the record. Appreciate your time, and if you have any further questions for us.
Members, do you have any additional questions? Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One question that I had on this was, what was the overall cost of the system and what's the annual cost?
Thank you. Patrick Starr for the record. So the total cost for the system right now for implementation is $75 million. We're looking at a $110 million cost over the lifespan of 18 years. And then the annuals after implementation are going to be, I would have to get you the exact number to be correct here, but I believe they were around the $15 million each year over year.
Okay, and then do you have a legacy system if this was to crash or be compromised?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time? Sorry.
Do you have a redundant or legacy system if this was to crash or be compromised or unavailable so that you could, that kind of continuity of operations?
Patrick Starr for the record. That is a great question and something that we discussed early on. Do we need to have a backup system in case there's a crash or anything? This is a hosted system. And in our contract, we were very, very clear about certain SLAs. So if the system does go down, what are we looking at? We were very poignant with our vendor partner on how many rollover locations they have. So the probability is if they were to go down in one location, they would roll out of their Denver location into another location where they had another set of servers, and we'd be back online within minutes. If we are offline for any extended period of time, there are financial implications to that. So we do not have a backup system on our end. However, we are very confident that in this system that and within the contract that we will remain online at all times.
So could people just still send in manually payments by
Patrick Starr for the record.
paper or whatever? I mean, is there even that level of redundancy?
If we needed to, again, Patrick Starr for the record, if a person wanted to send in a paper return, and we could manually take that and run it through our intake system, and we would be able to process that just fine. We are trying to move away from paper, as we said, but if that is the only means available, we could certainly do that. Part of our system is we have overhauled our mailroom experience, and we have gotten a high-speed scanning processor that's coming in, and it should go online here within the next month or so, but it can handle high volumes. So if we had for whatever reason, God forbid, a situation where we are down, but we needed to process manually, we could run them through that system and get things moving, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, thank you for your presentation. We appreciate it. On the finance side, right, we've talked about it, but it's good to see it. So we will go ahead and close out this presentation. I don't think there are any more questions, but this has been helpful, and I will follow up with the connection to MV Growth staff so we can figure that out. So once again, thank you again, and we will shift to public comment and close out this presentation. Is there anyone here in Carson City for public comment? No. Is there anyone in Vegas? No. BPS, is there anyone online for public comment?
you, Chair Neal. The public line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Okay, so we will go ahead and adjourn Senate revenue and see you guys next week.